I found an unfamiliar credit card statement in the kitchen drawer, one I'd never seen before, with charges dating back 6 months. My name is Jim, and that discovery changed everything. My wife Maria and I had been married for 8 years, living in Portland, Oregon, where I worked as a civil engineer, and she was a marketing director for a tech startup downtown. We had what I thought was a comfortable life, a 2-story house in the suburbs of Beaverton, weekend hikes in the Columbia River Gorge, Sunday brunches at our favorite cafe on Hawthorne. We'd built routines, shared dreams of eventually buying a cabin on the Oregon coast, talked about maybe starting a family in a year or two. But that credit card statement told a different story. Hotel rooms in Seattle, the Kimpton Hotel, the Fairmont Olympic. Restaurants I'd never heard of with bills exceeding $300. 2 plane tickets to San Francisco on a weekend. She'd told me she was visiting her sister in Eugene. Just a 2-hour drive south, not a flight north to California. Spa treatments, jewelry purchases from boutiques in Pioneer Square, wine tastings in Woodinville. The statement was hidden beneath old takeout menus and forgotten coupons, like she'd meant to destroy it but forgot. Or maybe part of her wanted me to find it. I sat at the kitchen table for an hour, just staring at the charges, my coffee growing cold beside me. Each line item was a small betrayal, but together they formed a portrait of a life I knew nothing about. Maria had been acting distant for weeks, but I'd chalked it up to a big project at work. She'd mentioned landing a major client, some tech company in California, that needed a complete rebrand. She'd leave early, sometimes before 6 in the morning, come home late, always with her phone face down on the counter, the screen darkening before I could catch a glimpse of her notifications. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? We'd built a life together, survived my layoff 3 years ago when the construction industry contracted, supported each other through her father's death 2 years back. I photographed every page of that statement with my phone, my hands shaking slightly. Some instinct told me I'd need evidence, that this wasn't something I could simply ask about and expect honest answers. That evening, when she came home at her usual 7:30, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the statement spread out in front of me. Rain pattered against the windows, typical Portland November weather. She came in shaking water from her coat, her heels clicking on our hardwood floors. "Hey babe," she said, leaning down to kiss my cheek like she did every night. Traffic was insane on the Sunset Highway. There was an accident near the tunnel. "What's this?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, gesturing to the papers. She glanced at it, and for just a second, maybe half a second, I saw panic flash across her face. Her pupils dilated, her breath caught, her hand froze halfway to setting down her bag. Then it was gone, replaced by that practiced calm she used in client meetings, the one that had helped her climb to director level. "It's for work expenses," she said smoothly, setting down her bag and moving to the refrigerator. "The company card got compromised last spring, so they issued temporary personal ones for the senior team. I've been meaning to file for reimbursement, but you know how backed up accounting gets. 2 tickets to San Francisco. On the weekend you visited your sister?" She pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, took her time opening it. "The weekend got moved. Work emergency. That California client I mentioned, they needed an in-person presentation. I forgot to tell you. Things have been so crazy." But I'd already called her sister. Maria had never shown up in Eugene that weekend. Her sister, confused, had said she hadn't seen Maria in 3 months, not since their father's birthday gathering in September. I didn't confront her with that yet. Something told me to wait, to watch, to gather more pieces of this puzzle that was my marriage falling apart. I'd learned patience working in engineering. You don't rush a structural analysis, you gather all the data first. Assumptions get people killed when you're building bridges. "How was your day?" she asked, changing the subject as she started pulling ingredients from the fridge for dinner. Acting perfectly normal, like we hadn't just had that exchange. "Fine," I said. "The Powell Boulevard project got approved. We'll break ground in March." "That's great, honey." Her tone was distracted, her mind clearly elsewhere. We made dinner together like we had hundreds of times before, pasta with marinara, a simple salad. She told me about her day, something about a meeting with the creative team, a disagreement about brand colors. I nodded, responded appropriately, while my mind replayed that flash of panic I'd seen in her eyes. That night, lying in bed beside her, listening to her breathe in the darkness, I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I checked our phone records online, something I'd never done in 8 years of marriage, something that felt like a violation, even as I justified it to myself. There was one number she texted constantly, hundreds of messages, mostly during work hours, but also late at night when she'd been lying beside me supposedly answering emails in bed. The texts started around 8 months ago, sporadic at first, then increasing in frequency until they were exchanging messages every few hours. I traced the number through a reverse lookup service I found online. It belonged to someone named Ryan Castellano, and his LinkedIn showed he worked at the same company as Maria, StrapPoint Digital, the mid-sized marketing firm downtown in the Pearl District. Not just any employee, he was the VP of sales, her direct supervisor. His profile photo showed a man in his early 40s, the kind of polished, confident look that probably impressed clients and subordinates alike. Expensive suit, practiced smile, background photo of him at some industry conference. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't some random affair with a stranger she'd met at a bar. This was calculated, ongoing, and happening right under everyone's noses at her workplace. Every late night at the office, every team dinner, every business trip. How many of those had been real? How many had been opportunities to be with him? I thought about confronting her immediately, demanding answers, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. I didn't want to be the hysterical, suspicious husband. Maybe it was the need to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with before making any moves. My parents had divorced when I was 10, and I still remembered the chaos, the screaming matches at 2 a.m., my mom throwing my dad's clothes onto the lawn while the neighbors watched, the police being called. I'd promised myself I'd never let my life become that kind of mess. I'd be smarter, more controlled, more strategic. So I hired a private investigator. I found him through a law firm's recommendation. My buddy from college was a corporate attorney, and when I vaguely mentioned needing background research, he gave me a name. Gary Chun, a retired Portland police detective who'd spent 20 years in the fraud division before starting his own investigation firm. His office was in a nondescript building in Gresham, the kind of place you'd drive past without noticing. Gary himself was in his late 50s, gray hair, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst behavior. "Let me guess," he said after I explained the situation. "You want me to follow your wife, confirm what you already know, and document it for divorce proceedings. Is it that obvious?" "Most of my clients already know the truth," he said, leaning back in his chair. "They just need it documented for court, or for themselves. Sometimes people need to see it with their own eyes before they can accept it. You'd be surprised how many people hope I'll prove them wrong." "And do you? Prove them wrong?" "Maybe one time in 50. He pulled out a contract. "My rate is $120 an hour plus expenses. I'll need a retainer of $3,000. I'm thorough, I'm discreet, and I've testified in over 100 divorce cases. I know what evidence holds up in court and what doesn't." I signed the contract, wrote the check, and felt like I was signing away the last remnants of my marriage. Gary worked fast. Within 3 days, he had photos. Maria and Ryan at a wine bar in the Pearl District on a Tuesday evening, his hand on her knee under the table, caught by Gary's telephoto lens. Maria and Ryan entering the Sentinel Hotel downtown at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, emerging 3 hours later, her hair slightly messed, his tie loosened. Maria and Ryan at Portland International Airport, boarding a 6 a.m. Alaska Airlines flight to Vancouver. A business trip she'd mentioned casually over breakfast. Except Gary had called StrapPoint's corporate office posing as a client and confirmed they had no offices, no clients, and no business whatsoever in Vancouver. The photos arrived via encrypted email. I opened them on my phone during my lunch break, sitting in my truck at the Powell Boulevard project site. Each image was professionally shot, time-stamped, irrefutable. But it was the video that destroyed me. Gary had followed them to a restaurant in Seattle, Canlis, an upscale place overlooking Lake Union. The drive from Portland to Seattle takes about 2.5 to 3 hours depending on traffic, and they'd made it on a Saturday, telling me it was a girls' weekend with her college friends. In the video, they sat at a table by the window with a view of the Space Needle in the distance. They were celebrating something with champagne. I could see the bottle, the glasses, the way Ryan raised his in a toast. Maria laughed at something he said, that genuine, unguarded laugh I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago when we'd met at a mutual friend's barbecue. Then they kissed, not a quick peck but a real kiss, the kind that showed comfort and familiarity. This wasn't new. This was routine. I watched that video sitting in my truck, the sounds of construction around me fading into white noise. I watched it 3 times, each viewing more surreal than the last. The woman in the video looked like my wife, Sounded like my wife when Gary's audio picked up fragments of their conversation, but she moved with a freedom and joy I hadn't seen directed at me in years. When had that changed? When had I become the obligation and Ryan the desire? My phone rang. Gary. Did you get the files? Yeah. My voice sounded hollow. I'm sorry, Jim. I've got more if you need it. I can keep following them, build a more extensive timeline. Or I can stop here. You've got more than enough for any divorce attorney. Keep going, I said. I need to know everything. How long, how often, all of it. You sure? Sometimes more information just makes it hurt worse. I'm sure. Over the next 2 weeks, Gary compiled a comprehensive dossier. The affair had been going on for exactly 8 months, starting the week after Strap Point's annual company retreat at Skamania Lodge in the Columbia River Gorge. There were receipts from hotels in Seattle, Portland, even one weekend in Cannon Beach at a bed and breakfast I'd been wanting to take Maria to for our anniversary. They'd been careful, mostly meeting outside of Portland proper, choosing places where they were less likely to run into anyone they knew. But they'd gotten comfortable sloppy. The Vancouver trip had been purely recreational, a weekend getaway disguised as work. Gary also discovered that Ryan was married. His wife Nicole and their 2 kids lived in Lake Oswego, a wealthy suburb south of Portland. Ryan had told Maria he was separated and in the process of divorce, but Gary's research showed otherwise. Ryan was still living at home, still attending his kids' soccer games, still posting family photos on Facebook. He'd been lying to Maria just as much as he'd been lying to his own wife. That discovery gave me a strange sense of grim satisfaction. Maria had thought she'd found something real, something worth destroying our marriage for. But she was just another affair, another secret, another lie in Ryan's apparently extensive history of deception. That night, Maria came home with takeout from Marnie Thai, our favorite restaurant on Burnside. She was in a good mood, humming something as she unpacked the containers: pad thai, green curry, spring rolls. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, complained about traffic on I-84 being backed up near the Lloyd Center because of an accident. I played along, matching her performance with one of my own. We sat at the kitchen table, eating like a normal couple, discussing mundane things, the weather forecast predicting snow next week, something funny she'd seen on social media, whether we should get the gutters cleaned before winter really set in. How was Seattle? I asked casually midway through dinner. She froze, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. What? Your trip to Seattle. Last Thursday. How was it? I wasn't in Seattle last Thursday. I was in the office all day. We had a strategy session with the entire marketing team. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Gary's photos, her and Ryan walking into Canlis, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling. The image was crystal clear, time-stamped, GPS coordinates embedded in the metadata. The color drained from her face. She set down her chopsticks, her hand trembling slightly. For a long moment, she just stared at the photo, then at me, then back at the photo. I watched her mind racing, calculating, trying to figure out how to explain this away. Then something shifted in her expression, a hardening I'd never seen before. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold anger. You had me followed? Her voice was ice, sharp enough to cut. That's psychotic, Jim. That's controlling and abusive and completely insane. The deflection was immediate, instinctive, textbook. Make me the villain for discovering what she'd been hiding. Turn the conversation away from her betrayal and onto my supposed transgression. How long? I asked, keeping my voice level. That's what you care about? Not that you violated my privacy? Not that you hired some creep to stalk me? Do you know how that makes me feel? How unsafe? How long, Maria? She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She grabbed her container of curry and dumped it into the trash with more force than necessary, the plastic container clattering against the metal can. 8 months, she finally said, her back still to me. Since March. Happy now? Is that what you wanted to hear? Does it make you feel better to have the exact timeline of how your marriage fell apart? 8 months. While I was working overtime on the Morrison Bridge retrofit project, staying late to review structural calculations, proud to be contributing to Portland's infrastructure, she was building a parallel life with another man. 8 months of lies, of fake work emergencies and imaginary sister visits and business trips that were really romantic getaways. 8 months of coming home and kissing me hello while carrying the secret of her afternoon with him. Why? It was the only question that mattered now, the only one I needed answered. Not the details of where or when or how, but why. Why blow up 8 years of marriage? Why not just leave if she was that unhappy? She turned to face me, and I barely recognized the expression on her face. There was anger there, yes, but also something like relief. Like she was glad it was finally out in the open, glad she didn't have to pretend anymore. She laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitterness. Why? You really want to know why, Jim? Because Ryan sees me. He values what I do. He doesn't just nod along when I talk about my projects. He engages, asks questions, actually cares about the details. When was the last time you really listened to me? When was the last time we had a conversation about something other than bills and house maintenance and what's for dinner? The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had gotten comfortable, complacent. Our relationship had become routine, predictable. We'd stopped dating each other, stopped making an effort. But comfort wasn't betrayal. Complacency wasn't 8 months of hotel rooms and secret trips and elaborate lies. So leave, I said, my voice harder now. If you're that unhappy, if I'm such a terrible husband, then leave. Don't sneak around. Don't make me the idiot who doesn't know his wife is having an affair with her boss. Have the courage to end it honestly. Oh, I'm leaving, she said, and there was an edge of triumph in her voice. Ryan and I already have an apartment picked out in the south waterfront. One of those new buildings with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. I was going to tell you next month, after his divorce was finalized. We were trying to do this the right way, minimize the damage. His divorce. This fantasy life she'd constructed was collapsing someone else's family too. For lives upended, mine, hers, Ryan's wife, their kids. For what? For excitement? For validation? For the thrill of something new? He's married? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Separated, she corrected quickly, defensively, as if that made it better. He and Nicole have been done for over a year. She found out about us 2 months ago. It's been messy. She's being vindictive about the divorce, trying to take him for everything. But it'll be worth it. Once we're both free, we can finally be together openly. I stared at this stranger wearing my wife's face, spouting romantic cliches about a relationship built on lies and destruction. Did she really believe what she was saying? Did she really think Ryan had been separated for over a year while Gary's photos showed him kissing his wife goodbye at their doorstep just last week? Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my house. Tonight. Right now. She grabbed her purse from the counter, her laptop bag from where she'd dropped it by the door. She disappeared upstairs and I heard drawers opening and closing, the sound of clothes being thrown hastily into a suitcase. She came back down 15 minutes later, wheeling a large suitcase, a garment bag over her shoulder, her arms full of toiletries. Before she left, she paused at the door and turned back. Her eyes were dry. She hadn't cried once during this entire confrontation. You know, this is partly your fault, she said. If you'd been more present, more interesting, more engaged with my life, maybe I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Maybe if you'd put half the energy into our marriage that you put into your bridges, we wouldn't be here. The door slammed behind her, and I sat in the sudden silence of our house, my house now, trying to process what had just happened. The takeout containers were still on the table, her half-eaten pad thai congealing in its sauce. I could smell her perfume lingering in the air, that same scent she'd worn for years, now forever associated with betrayal. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the quiet house, listening to the rain on the roof, and wondered how I'd been so blind. Maria's story didn't end with her dramatic exit. 2 weeks later, on a cold Tuesday morning, I got a call from an unknown number while I was reviewing plans for the Powell Boulevard project. Is this Jim? A woman's voice, tense and tired. Yes. Who's this? My name is Nicole Castellano. I'm Ryan's wife. I found your number in the discovery documents from my divorce attorney. I think we should talk. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop in Beaverton, the Starbucks on Canyon Road, neutral territory between our respective neighborhoods. I arrived first, ordered a black coffee I didn't really want, and sat at a corner table away from the other customers. When Nicole walked in, I recognized her immediately from the Facebook photos Gary had shown me. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, the uniform of someone who'd stopped caring about appearances. Jim, she asked, approaching my table. Nicole, thank you for reaching out. She sat down across from me, clutching her own coffee like it was a lifeline. For a moment, we just looked at each other, two people connected by betrayal, strangers brought together by our spouses' choices. I needed to meet you, she said finally. To see if you were real. To see if you knew what they were saying about us. What are they saying? That we're the reason they couldn't be happy. That we were neglectful, inattentive, that we drove them away. Ryan told our marriage counselor, yes, we were in counseling while he was sleeping with your wife, that I'd become too focused on the kids and had no time for him. That I'd let myself go. That we hadn't had sex in months. She laughed bitterly. We had sex 3 days before I found out about the affair. But apparently, that didn't fit the narrative he wanted to tell Maria. Maria said similar things, I admitted. That I didn't listen, didn't engage, was too focused on work. And maybe there's truth in it, Nicole said. Maybe we both could have been better spouses. But that doesn't justify this. There's a difference between being an imperfect partner and systematically lying to everyone in your life. She pulled out a folder from her bag. Apparently, we both came prepared with documentation. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, text messages her attorney had subpoenaed during the divorce discovery process. Ryan and Maria have been telling people they're in love, she said, spreading the papers on the table between us. That this is some great romance, worth all the damage. Star-crossed lovers finally finding each other. I needed to meet you, to see if you believed that story. I don't believe anything anymore, I admitted. Nicole's evidence painted a picture even more damning than Gary's photos. Bank statements showed Ryan had been spending money he and Nicole didn't have, money from their joint account, money that was supposed to go toward their kids' college funds. Credit cards maxed out on Maria's gifts and their romantic escapades. He'd bought Maria jewelry, expensive dinners, weekend trips, all while telling Nicole they needed to cut back on expenses. While Nicole was clipping coupons and packing school lunches, Ryan was dropping $500 on a single dinner with Maria. The timeline of lies was particularly devastating. Ryan had told Maria he'd been planning to leave Nicole for over a year, that their marriage had been dead for ages. In reality, Nicole had discovered the affair completely by accident just 2 months ago when Ryan's assistant called their home phone on a Saturday morning, looking for him urgently. Ryan had said he'd be at a conference in Sacramento that weekend, a technology sales convention. But the assistant needed to reach him about a client emergency and was confused when Nicole said he was out of town. There's no convention in Sacramento this weekend, the assistant had said. Did he tell you Sacramento? That's weird. That one slip had unraveled everything. Nicole had checked Ryan's location on Find My Friends, a feature they'd enabled years ago for safety when he traveled. He was in Cannon Beach, not Sacramento. She'd driven there, found his car at a bed and breakfast, confronted him as he and Maria were checking out Sunday morning. The look on his face, Nicole said, staring into her coffee. Pure panic. Not guilt, not remorse, just panic about being caught. And Maria, she acted like I was the crazy one. Like I was the problem for showing up and ruining their romantic weekend. We compared notes, timelines, lies. The Seattle trip, where I thought they'd gone together? Ryan had told Nicole he was there for a client meeting with Amazon's advertising team. The Vancouver trip? He'd claimed it was a fishing trip with college buddies. Different lies to different people, carefully calibrated to avoid detection. They'd built an elaborate structure of deception, and now it was collapsing. I'm divorcing him, Nicole said. My lawyer says I have a strong case for alimony and child support given the affair and his financial deception. He drained our savings account, maxed out our credit cards, put us in debt for his affair. What about you? Same, I said. My lawyer's drawing up papers now. We don't have kids, so it's more straightforward. Just assets to divide. What I didn't tell Nicole was my plan, the thing I'd been working on since Maria walked out. I wasn't interested in just divorcing her and moving on. I wanted her to understand the real consequences of her choices. Not revenge, exactly, but accountability. Justice. I started by reaching out to StrapPoint Digital's HR department. I didn't call angry or make threats. I simply sent a formal email to their ethics hotline, a service they advertised on their website for reporting workplace concerns. I provided documentation of the affair between Ryan, a VP-level supervisor, and Maria, his direct report. I included the credit card statements showing company resources being used for personal travel, the photos of them at restaurants and hotels during supposed business trips, the proof that several client meetings they'd claimed to attend had never actually happened. In Oregon, workplace affairs between supervisors and subordinates create significant liability for companies, especially when company resources are being misused. StrapPoint Digital was a mid-sized firm trying to establish itself as an ethical, employee-friendly workplace. This kind of scandal could damage their reputation, affect their ability to attract clients and top talent. HR launched an investigation immediately. Within 3 days, both Maria and Ryan were placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. An external law firm was brought in to conduct interviews with other employees, review expense reports, examine email records. What they found was even worse than I'd documented. This wasn't Ryan's first affair at StrapPoint. He'd had a relationship with another employee 2 years earlier, a woman who'd eventually left the company. Several people had suspected, but no one had reported it. The company's ethics policy was clear. Romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports violated their code of conduct. When those relationships involved falsified expense reports and misuse of company resources, it became potential fraud. Then I did something that surprised even me. I contacted 3 of the clients Maria and Ryan had supposedly been visiting during their trysts. I presented myself as a concerned citizen providing information, not making accusations, just asking if they could confirm certain meetings had taken place. 2 of the 3 companies confirmed that no such meetings had occurred. Maria and Ryan had billed StrapPoint for fake business travel, pocketing per diems and mileage reimbursements for trips that were actually personal getaways. That wasn't just unethical. It was fraud. It was potentially criminal. Maria called me 3 weeks after the HR investigation started, her voice shaking with fury. "You're trying to get me fired?" she screamed into the phone. "You're sabotaging my career? This is insane, Jim. This is abuse. This is harassment." "I'm not doing anything," I said calmly, sitting in my condo's living room with a view of downtown Portland's lights. "I just provided truthful information to the appropriate parties. If there are consequences, those are the natural results of your choices. This is revenge. It's petty and vindictive, and you know it. You're destroying my life because you're bitter about the divorce." "No, Maria. Revenge would be posting about your affair on social media, telling all your friends and family, trying to isolate you and make your life miserable. That would be revenge. This is just letting your professional decisions have professional consequences. You and Ryan thought you could have your affair and keep everything else intact, your jobs, your reputations, your financial security. You thought you could defraud your company and face no ramifications. Reality doesn't work that way. I'll sue you. I'll get a restraining order. You'll do what, exactly? Sue me for telling the truth? Get a restraining order because I reported fraud to your employer? Talk to a lawyer, Maria. Ask them if I've done anything illegal." She hung up on me, but the calls kept coming over the next few weeks, alternating between rage and pleading, threats and desperate attempts at reconciliation. Each time, I let them go to voicemail. Each time, I saved the recordings just in case. The company fired both of them within a month of starting the investigation. The official reason given was misuse of company resources and violations of ethics policy. Their names were quietly removed from the company website, their LinkedIn profiles suddenly showing them as in transition or seeking new opportunities. Several industry contacts told me the real reason for their termination was circulating through Portland's tight-knit marketing community. They'd be toxic to hire. Who wants employees who've proven they'll defraud their employer? Ryan's divorce from Nicole proceeded quickly once the evidence of his financial fraud came to light. His lawyer advised him to settle rather than go to trial, where all of this would become public record. Nicole got the house, primary custody of their 2 kids, alimony, and child support that would stretch Ryan's finances thin for years to come. But the most unexpected twist came from Ryan's past. Nicole, in her divorce proceedings, had hired her own investigator to dig into Ryan's background. What they discovered shocked even me. Ryan had done this before. Not just the affair 2 years ago at StrapPoint, but a pattern going back a decade. At his previous company in Austin, Texas, he'd had an affair with a subordinate that lasted 2 years. When HR discovered it, they'd quietly let him go rather than face the publicity of a scandal. He'd moved to Denver, where he'd done it again at a different company. Then Portland and StrapPoint. At each job, he'd found a woman who reported to him, pursued her, promised her a future, used company resources to finance the affair, and then either gotten caught or moved on to someone new. Maria hadn't been swept off her feet by a charming executive who'd finally found his soulmate. She'd been the latest in a pattern, a type. Ryan had a playbook, and she'd fallen for every move. Nicole forwarded me the investigative report, and I debated whether to show it to Maria. Part of me wanted her to suffer with not knowing, to keep believing in her grand romance. But another part of me, the part that had loved her for 12 years, wanted her to see the truth. I sent her the report via email with no message, just the PDF attachment. 2 days later, at midnight on a Thursday, she showed up at my condo door. I almost didn't answer. I could see her through the peephole, swaying slightly, and I knew she'd been drinking. But something in her posture, the defeated slope of her shoulders, made me open the door. "He lied to me," she said without preamble. Her makeup was running, her eyes red and swollen. She looked genuinely devastated, broken in a way I'd never seen her. About everything. His marriage, his past, his intentions. There were 3 other women before me. 3. He did the exact same thing with all of them. The romantic trips, the promises of a future together, the claims that his marriage was already over. He was just using me. I leaned against the doorframe, not inviting her in. "Welcome to the club." "I'm sorry." The words came out as a sob. "I'm so sorry, Jim. You were right. About everything. I threw away our marriage for nothing. For a lie. For a man who never cared about me at all." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There was a twisted satisfaction in watching her fantasy shatter, in seeing her realize she'd destroyed her life for nothing. But underneath that was just exhaustion. Exhaustion with the drama, the pain, the endless cycle of betrayal and consequences. "Is that what you came here for?" I asked. "Absolution? I came because I don't know where else to go. I've lost everything. My job, my apartment. Ryan broke the lease when the eviction notices started coming because he can't afford it anymore with the alimony payments. I'm staying on my friend's couch. My reputation in the industry is destroyed. My sister won't talk to me because I lied about visiting her. And you, I lost you because I was an idiot who believed a liar's lies." "You didn't lose me because you believed lies," I said. "You lost me because you chose to have an affair instead of working on our marriage or ending it honestly. Those were your choices, Maria. Own them." She wiped at her eyes, smearing her mascara further. Is there any way?" "No," I said firmly. "We're done. The divorce will be final in 6 weeks. Move on with your life, and let me move on with mine." The divorce finalized on a Tuesday morning in late April. The courthouse in downtown Portland was busy with the usual parade of people ending their marriages. Maria and I sat on opposite sides of the waiting area, not speaking, not even looking at each other. Her lawyer had advised against pushing too hard for spousal support, given her unemployment and the documented affair. My lawyer had been equally pragmatic: split the assets down the middle, sell the house, walk away clean. The judge reviewed our settlement agreement, asked the perfunctory questions about whether we'd both entered into it voluntarily and understood the terms, and signed the decree. 7 minutes. 8 years of marriage dissolved in 7 minutes. In the hallway afterward, Maria tried one last time. "Jim, I just want you to know." "Don't," I interrupted. "There's nothing left to say. We've said it all." She nodded, her eyes filling with tears, and walked away. I watched her go, waiting to feel something: anger, sadness, regret, relief. But there was just emptiness. I sold the house in Beaverton within a month. A young couple with a baby bought it, excited about the good schools in the area and the backyard perfect for a playset. I took my half of the proceeds and moved into a condo in the Lloyd district, a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Mount Hood on clear days. It was smaller than the house, but it was mine alone. No ghosts, no memories, no reminders. Work became my focus. The Powell Boulevard Bridge project was moving forward, and I threw myself into it with an intensity that worried my colleagues. I also joined a hiking group and rediscovered Forest Park, the trails I'd neglected during my marriage. I met people, good people who didn't know my story, who saw me as just Jim, not that guy whose wife cheated. I'm dating now. There's a woman named Jennifer I met through the hiking group. She's a high school teacher, divorced 3 years ago, no drama. We take things slow, communicate openly, and I'm learning that not everyone lies. The Powell Boulevard Bridge opened last month. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, watching cars cross the structure my team had built, connecting neighborhoods that had been separated for decades. There's poetry in that, I think. Building bridges while mine burned. Learning that sometimes the strongest structures are the ones you construct after everything else has collapsed. Maria made her choice, and so did I. She chose passion over integrity, excitement over stability, fantasy over reality. I chose truth, even when it was painful, even when it meant acknowledging my own shortcomings. I don't hate her anymore. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend elsewhere. But I don't forgive her either. Some things can't be repaired, shouldn't be repaired. You just accept they're broken, and build something new with the pieces you can salvage. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.